Ladies and gentlemen, what's good, y'all? It's the Chillmeister J. Christian Gary, and you are watching and listening to another Focus Fights Audio Presents special interview. And when it comes to personalities in the world of professional wrestling and combat sports, especially in the journalism space, there needs to be more women or voices of color in this damn field. And this woman is doing her part to make sure that. From her beginnings in the world of virtual wrestling and CAW to fan blogging, she has parlayed that into her success at being at major events or just grinding it out on the indie scene and wants to continue to expand her multimedia empire. Ladies and gentlemen, by way of the DMV, or I guess, I don't know, DMV, Detroit, I'm probably going to get some flack for asking that, but still, though, by way of the whole East Coast in general, this is Katrina Cat Blake. Cat, what up, though?
Hey, hey, what's up?
Hey, nothing much, Miss Blake. I mean, I just gotta ask, first of all, where are you from originally? Because I kind of messed up that intro, to be honest. I mean, I don't know if you're from DC. I don't know if you're from Michigan. I mean, I know you're from the East Coast, but where
Yeah,
exactly are you from?
New York City.
Oh, damn it. My apologies, Miss Blake. My apologies. I mean, I'm not gonna basically ask what part of New York City you're from because I know when people say New York City, I mean, I wouldn't say they get all in their feelings, but they basically get a little bit prideful. You know what I mean?
I am definitely that New Yorker who's a bit prideful. New York City all day. Um, but yes, I am from Queens.
Oh, okay. So basically, you're from the five boroughs, and Queens is one of the five boroughs, right?
Yeah, well, New York City people we always say the five boroughs and nothing more.
Understood, Miss Blake. Understood. But still, don't. I got some questions to ask. I mean, aside from starting out the next VPW, because as we basically discussed before I pressed record on this, if it wasn't for you being in CAW and virtual wrestling beforehand, I probably wouldn't have known you or have followed your journey since then. But still, though, aside from being an ex VPW, when you first got into the journalism space of pro wrestling, what was the overall perception of being in that press room for the first time like?
Well, it's a weird thing because like I got into wrestling before even the journalism aspect. I got into it kind of joining a podcast, and they were looking for more women hosts that liked wrestling. And I was in this all women's Facebook group, and a girl in there like said, "Oh, we're looking for female hosts," and I'm like, whatever, why not? Let's just see how that goes. And then I kind of like auditioned, I guess I want to say. I kind of popped in on something, and then I did something live. And it was like, "You want to join?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And then um, I did that, and then quarantine happened. And which is 2020 in general was like the greatest year for me or anything. So wrestling was kind of the thing I kind of attached myself to even more than normal. Uh, and then I started interviewing wrestlers I knew from shows I've went to, and I was like, "We were home, let's just chat or whatever." Um, and then that led into me working shows like backstage. And then I wound up being in some of the interviews I did during the quarantine got me into a place I no longer work with. But that was the first time I actually got into a press room or like where I was at a press event and it was virtual, but I was still in it. And that was pretty cool. Never would have thought, honestly. And I didn't like if this, you asked me this like 5 years ago, I would have been like, no, I wouldn't be doing anything wrestling related like this. And so it was pretty cool to kind of be in there. And obviously, I was still kind of new, and so I wasn't really known or any of that stuff yet. But I feel like from then to now, I've done enough or done a lot of things that I'm like, okay, I'm kind of standing on my own uh, 2 feet, if you will. So it's been a really wild but like pretty good ride. I've had moments, but for the most part, I've been pretty fortunate.
I mean, I completely understand you on that aspect because I've been doing this for like 12 years, but I do think that 2020 was when everything pretty much changed. We all started to get out of our comfort zone a little more, even though we stuck it, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, especially considering the fact that now, I mean, you got more people basically interacting with their fans. And I mean, to be honest with you, with pro wrestling, I mean, with wrestlers in general starting to branch out more into multimedia, more into content, be it through fan pages, suitable for work, not suitable for work, you game streams like with Lou Legacy Inc. or with podcasts. Do you think that wrestlers are starting to get more attached with their fans or more attached with the media, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's kind of like 50-50. I do feel like to an extent we got some access to things we might not have gotten access to before the whole kayfabe, everybody's kayfabe term. Like, you expected wrestlers to really not like each other. Well, me, not by the point I started, like, obviously by the point I already knew, but like, there's people who really still really much into kayfabe. And so when you kind of have now people are home and they're like on Twitch or gaming or cameos or whatever it is that they're doing, it kind of changed the perception to an extent that it did make wrestlers or people in wrestling a little bit more like accessible by the public. And so it's like that part, but then it's also like I think kind of being in it, I kind of understand things a little bit better with like how certain things you try to keep just a certain way or I like just where it's like there's certain things I do feel a good chunk of people kind of hold dear, and I think that is important to kind of keep that, especially with something like sports, entertainment, wrestling, since that's the wrestling we're all kind of talking about. It's not like the wrestling, like the Olympic type wrestling, but more sports entertainment geared. And
Yep.
so I feel like it's like it's good in that way, but then it's also bad because again, you do have more access to social media and you do have people having more access to people in wrestling. And so sometimes people are not the greatest people or they're not nice or they think they know things they may not know or they're completely wrong about and they kind of I want to say even it made people more bold or more audacity if that's the word I want to use just with how they think it kind of entitled sometimes to time or they're entitled to feel like they have to know everything or like they're entitled to answers about everything and I feel like that's like kind of the downside of it with media.
Oh yeah, of course. Especially considering the fact that, and I'm not trying to disparage any one particular person, Jake Paul, no, Logan Paul, who just basically is doing this for shits and giggles, so to speak. I mean, you have to think that now, especially with social media and especially now with the extensive media, people are really starting to show, yeah. I mean, yeah, who's there to respect out there and who's there to basically say, hey, we don't like this guy. He deserves to be shat on, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not gonna say I'm a Logan Paul fan. I'm definitely not, but I
Either.
would say that he's probably one of the few celebrities that seem like he's actually put some effort into it. Like Bad Bunny's probably one of them too that I feel like he might have done some real work in it, but I feel like he's better than I thought he was going to be. To be fair, I expected him to really just not be great, and he's pleasantly surprised me. I still don't really like him, but I can admit, like, okay, you're not as terrible as I originally expected you to be.
I
So
see.
yeah,
I see. And I mean, to be honest, I can't really say that I even know one Bad Bunny song, but I do know that he has a great fan base that a lot of people really go bonkers for. But still, though, now that basically gets me down to, my next question. When it comes down to No, it actually. The question I really want to ask is: we got Mercedes Monet W as of this past Wednesday. We got Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill in the Big Fed. We got Tasha Steeles, and we even got Athena, who's about to main event her third professional wrestling pay per view in a row with Ring of Honor. But yet, still, we still got all these trolls, these marks, these I guess ass clowns that just basically treat these black women's professional wrestlers like they don't deserve their spots. I mean, why do you think that some of these people just act that way? Is it because it's just bitter hate or just sheer jealousy?
I think it's a bunch of things, honestly. I think it's ignorance. I think it's semi misogynistic views. I think it's some racism thrown in there. I think, it's a bunch of things. And of course, obviously, there's the ones who say everything they can. And I always make the comments, it's like, you're at somebody's basement, probably writing these comments, and what are they doing? They're making money, and you are not doing that or even close. And in particular with Bianca, and I'm a huge Sasha Mercedes fan,
Hmm.
but Bianca in particular always a bit resonated with me because she didn't even have that wrestling background. And so to not have wrestling at all as something you was really into, you didn't train for it in any capacity until you were picked, and to excel at the way that she excelled. I think people, of course, they hate that. Of course, they feel like she got something, but she worked. And I just, even NXT, where you clearly saw she was getting better. Like, obviously, she's on it now, but even when she first started, you can tell she was still tweaking. There were things that had to tweak, she had to get more comfortable with. But the one thing is she's always been herself, and that's, I know I've seen the weird comments where like people complained about her braid, and I'm like, so it's okay. You're complaining about her wearing this braided extension, yet half, if not all, of women in wrestling, unless they have a really short haircut, or the occasional ones who are more like a Shayna Baszler who kind of keeps her hair, short because of the type of, you know, where her background's from. She's not the only one wearing extensions or weave or whatever. And so I'm like, why does this bother you so much? And nobody ever has an answer whenever I ask that question. It's like, well, why is somebody's hair bothering you this much? And it's always obviously some racial undertones to the reason why they don't like it. And unfortunately, we got to see that with the 2K cover. I think I love me some Rhea Ripley. Rhea's my girl. I always like make the joke. If I liked women, I definitely see why people love Rhea Ripley. Like I see it. I'm like, no, I get it. Like she's great. While I am not a Cody Rhodes fan, and I am not. With regards to Bianca and Rhea, those are my girls, and so to see the very different responses to Rhea and Bianca, and I think people forgot. I was like, are we forgetting Bianca's like accomplishments in the last year and a half?
Yep.
The WrestleMania main eventing, the fact that a lot of girls who haven't watched wrestling before will watch it now because of Bianca. She has like mainstream appeal now outside of wrestling, that people know who Bianca is.
Oh
And
yeah.
then the fact that she was a champion for over a year of all the, like, don't do that. I was like, we're gonna stop. Like, it's all, again, really, sometimes I just feel racial undertones to it because she's great. And just because she didn't do it in the last 6 months, I guess, as people are expecting, I'm like, she had an amazing year and a half. Like, are we not watching the same program? Like, are we missing something? And so, I do think, even with Mercedes's contract, where I've been seeing for the last 2 days that people thinking she was getting paid too much, or
Mm.
saying she was overrated or whatever. And I'm like, of course, I don't like, to be clear, I don't like all the four horsewomen to that extent. That would be a lie. Charlotte sometimes irritates me, but I can also admit that Charlotte, I think wrestled better than her dad. I think she's a better wrestler, personally. I think, sure, there's some, yeah, her last name, but then so is Cody. And I'm like, if you're gonna, again, if you're gonna play it a spade, call a spade a spade, then call it. And so if Cody is about family and legacy and all these things, then why is it a problem if Charlotte is doing it? And so, it's basically the same coin to an extent. And so, and I'm thinking, like, when Charlotte really got on the main roster, they pushed her. Like, she was main event from the beginning, while Cody, pre AEW days, was, as they say, in the mid card section.
Mm,
I used to, and to be fair, my Cody Rhodes hate is like, or dislike is years in. This is way before AEW. I just was never a fan of him.
totally understand.
Um, yeah, I just wasn't a fan. I was definitely somebody who's like, why are you on my TV, dude? And now it's like extra because he's now main event picture, and I'm like, we don't need this personally. But even with that being said, I just think that people are ignorant. It's ignorance. If you can look at a Bianca, if you can look at a Mercedes who decided I'm gonna do this for me, and have something negative to say about that, or saying, oh, she had a tantrum, well, her and every other male wrestler, and that is the case. Or are we gonna ignore how Hogan was? Why the contract was written that way it was for him? Or are we gonna ignore even how, and I love me some Randy Orton, but Randy was an asshole back in the day. He's admitted that. So he was an asshole. And I love me Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels is the reason I'm a wrestling fan. He was an asshole back in the day, though. Like, he was an asshole. He definitely wasn't always about the camaraderie of the locker room. And so if Mercedes decides this is better for me, I'm gonna get a bag, get your coins. So I'm all for people making their money. Make your money. She's not bothering anybody by going to whatever company is going to pay her some money. And then she's in Star Wars that there's people who I know didn't watch wrestling knew who she was because of that. And again, if you can get that audience to bring somebody in to watch it, then they did what they're supposed to do. And so it's just, yeah, I think it's just ignorance. I feel like people are ignorant and very narrow minded. And so this is why they get to social media and complain, complain, complain. But again, are you wrestling? And the answer is no, you're not. So
I mean, come to think of it, first of all, when it comes down to the whole hair thing, plainly see I'm bald headed. I can't really complain about something that I don't have. But still, though, I don't see why people complain about the fact that, oh, she's using her braids to her advantage. When just about, like you said, just about everybody in women's professional wrestling have some sort of long hair. I mean, are you going to complain about that shit too? Second of all, when it comes down to Bianca being on the cover, I mean, look at what she's done over the last 2.5, almost 3 years now. She's basically been getting her. I mean, yeah, I can go ahead and say it. It's a podcast. She's been getting her shit in, so to speak, and then some. I mean, how else are you going to basically explain to somebody who has had the longest women's title reign in probably the last 25 years since they brought back the damn belt? How are you going to basically tell somebody who co-main evented WrestleMania with another fellow black wrestler, hey, you don't belong, go be on some other cover or something like that? I mean, seriously. It's like when it comes down to Bianca Belair, she deserves all her flowers and then some. Same goes for the Street Profits, of which one of them happened to be her husband. I mean, to be honest, I just don't get all the hate and animosity when it comes down to some of these so-called wrestling fans who just think, oh, we don't want to see a black woman in the main event picture. Well, if you don't want to see a black woman in the main event picture, here's the fucking hint. Don't turn on WWE. Don't watch AEW because Mercedes is going to be in the main event picture and she deserves all her money. Don't turn on Ring of Honor because Athena is definitely going to make her money. I mean, just go do something else. But still, though, it just really, it just really praises me to no end. Like, I mean, I get what you're saying about generational backgrounds. Cody Rhodes has it. Charlotte Flair has it. Randy Orton has it. But still, though, it to me like if you can get past those times, if you can get past the fact that the people are assholes, which they were, and Shawn Michaels was an asshole to an extent. That's why he changed himself up in 2002, and ever since then has been nothing more but a locker room leader. But still, don't. I mean, I just think that people need to just realize the good in some of this stuff. Don't basically bash somebody just because they're different. You know what I mean? Sorry for the rant.
you're good.
Uh, but still, though, my next question, and I'm going to try and warm myself up back here. When it comes to events and entities, And you got For the Culture and Game Changer Wrestling. You got this promotion out of Des Moines, Iowa called Black Wrestlers Matter. And you got all different shining all over the globe. Especially names like Michael Oku, the OJMO, Man Like the Reeve, Kevin Knight. I mean, shit, I just mentioned Trish Adora, who's in Ring of Honor AEW. She was once the holder of the most beautiful championship belt there is, the World Wrestling the World Diaspora Pan African Wrestling Championship. But still though, do you think that because of all that there should be more of a focus on, showcases of cultural professional wrestling, especially black professional wrestling?
She Trish is amazing. I've been very fortunate to work some shows with her. I thought that just the whole aspect, and this is not even shade to any other like wrestling company or any other wrestlers, but it's like you think of professional wrestling in general and how little we would see people that look like us on like TV or seen them even be in titles, pictures, or any of that stuff, and it's not that many. And that's probably why it was such a big deal when Bianca and Sasha or Mercedes made it. For at least for me, I was like, this is freaking cool. I've never seen this. Growing up, I wish I could have gotten this as a kid. That girls got recently, and so I think it's good that we do have some. I do understand to an extent the whole, well, it shouldn't be where we'd have to do that to kind of get some shine, because it shouldn't be like the couple of women, if two or three women on the card, and then you might have a couple of like black people on the card maybe. And that we shouldn't get to the point where we have to do it, but I also think that sometimes it's necessary. I think being black is such a monolith. It's not, excuse me, it's not a monolith. It's not like we're not in a box. I feel like we're all different in what we like, what we do, how we are, how we speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like sometimes the only way you can showcase that properly is to have a place where it's dedicated to kind of putting that platform out there for people to kind of see that is all kinds of black and all of that's beautiful and all of that is cool, and these guys can wrestle and these girls can wrestle, and even if it's intergender, if it's tag, whatever, trios, whatever it is, that it's there. And I think that's important. Again, like I said, to an extent I can kind of see why it shouldn't have to be separated. um, but then again, as much as we have made some steps forward in wrestling or in general, I feel like just in life, there's a lot of things that we're not really as progressed with yet. And there's still so much just ignorance around certain things or people not understanding why these type of things are a big deal. uh Thinking about people still complaining about like Black History Month, and I'm like, are we playing? Like, are we still in 2024 not understanding why it is Black History Month? And it's like, well, we had like a white people month, and I'm like, or I mean, I your
Let
history wasn't this much changed, and most of you guys talk
me
to
do my thing, but let me go ahead and tell you this. Anybody who complains about Black History Month being in February obviously haven't been in our shoes, especially considering all the history that our people have pretty much put forth to this fucking country. I mean, if anything, we deserve to have Black history spotlighted every fucking day.
no, yeah, I'm with you on that one. I and so I try to say like even nonsense like that. I'm like, guys, like,
Mm-hmm.
are we in 2024 still complaining about something like this? And it's always that weird thing, and I'm like, well, a good chunk of you guys kind of got to come here, at least in the America part, willingly. You did that on your own. You decided whatever family member decided this was a better option. You did that, and I can't always say we can't say that with a lot of the black people here. And so if we have a month dedicated to celebrating the contributions and good things that black people have done in the country, I don't see why it's like you guys are still again in 2024 just opposed to it, as if we don't see y'all every day, even during Black History Month. Like it's still there. And so like stuff like that is just like, I don't know. I feel like unfortunately, as much as you want everything to be collaborative and together, we do really need it to showcase what people and black people in wrestling can do, and I think that's important. So I think those are cool. I'm hoping one day I can even like at any place. I would love to interview half those people or like just one time work. But just to be in that experience, I feel like it'll probably be a very different experience. Just kind of how it was. Well, when I did Black Girl Magic, that was actually a super awesome experience, and I was very, very grateful to be in that space because one, I feel like women in locker rooms, no shade to men wrestlers, but women in locker rooms are a very different vibe, and I caught that pretty quick. Just kind of how different supportive the women usually very are of each other in that vibe, but also that they killed it. They killed it, and just to be in that, to be part of that, just to experience that, and I'm like, yeah, this is why it's necessary. Like we got all types of wrestlers, types of styles that got to showcase what they can do on a at this event. And so any other company that has that dedicated or events that they may have, I think it's important to show that again that we are so many things, not in a box, and I think that's important to show. So I think it's cool.
You know what? It's funny to mention Black Girl Magic because when it comes down to that, yeah, I do again believe that there should be more black women, more BIPOC or black and people of color in the world of professional wrestling, but especially more black women because, as they say, the most often misunderstood person that is a woman. But still, though, when it comes down to Black Girl Magic in professional wrestling, I mean, do you think that probably be in due time potentially a showcase for a lot of the future star professional wrestling to make their way?
I mean, I hope so. I feel like if all the girlies that was like on that, just if they can get to where they want, whatever that place may be, wherever that company is, whatever goal, I do hope they can make it. I do hope it can be what they want it to be, and it shouldn't be like we're sitting here like, oh my God, Mercedes has this crazy contract. It should be like, well, a lot of you guys have this crazy contract, or it shouldn't be like, well, Athena is in ROH and she's main eventing, but it should be multiple people main eventing or having that opportunity. And so I feel like the fact that we're always in awe about it, even in this day and age, is always kind of like, oh, it's unfortunate. You hopefully can have moved past that whole dynamic of things being like a one-off or oh, this is pretty. We might not see this again in 5 years, like that kind of thing. It shouldn't be that.
It should
Again,
not
I feel like
be an everyday occurrence. Let's be real.
yeah, and so I do think you know as magical as black women are, I still think we have a really, really long, long way to go in that regard. I don't think the world the world is not ready for a lot of things still, and that's obvious. Unfortunately, even as great as I've said previously, in general, women I do think have to be have to try extra hard, but I do think black women in particular have to be damn near perfect
Mm,
for it to even register to some people, which is why when people complain about Bianca, I was like, she's literally like all the things you can probably think of, she checks off, and yet you still complain. And she's probably damn near perfect. Like she has like strength. She can talk. She can gravitate with the girlies. She can make both children and adults feel things alike, and that's not easy to do. But it's even harder when you have a lot of that already against you, just because you're a black woman. And I feel like in general we always have to be perfect, like 100. Like we're not really allowed to mess up. We're not allowed to. We can't be mediocre. I feel like that's that's the way I
basically,
want to say it.
yeah,
It's like you have to be
I mean,
like in the Beyonce era all the time.
it's like you're saying, you can't be mediocre, you can't be average. You have to basically, I mean, in sporting terms, you have to pitch a perfect shutout.
Yeah.
I mean, and especially when you think about it, especially from Bianca Belair's case, she has pitched a perfect shutout numerous times over the last 3 years. I mean, this is a woman, as we mentioned. I mean, she basically has a top background. She went to two schools. I think it was South Carolina and Tennessee, and ended up excelling at track. I mean, come to think of it, you can also say that Lash Legend might be a future star in the making. She played college basketball at A&M, Texas A&M, fighting Aggies, and then went to go play in the WNBA, but the pandemic screwed her over. So now she's pretty much taken up for lost time, especially in the WWE. But still, though, when it comes down to more of these showcases, more of these opportunities for black women, I mean, even Danny Jordan nowadays. Kat, can you hear me? Sorry about that. My phone just kind of messed up.
You're good. I can hear you.
Yeah, but still, even in this day and age, we got Danny Jordan basically getting showcased for her wrestling abilities on a site like World Star Hip Hop. And we all know how much of a so called influence WSHH is. But still, though, it just shows to me, and this ain't just limited to the. And this ain't just limited to black women competitors. It's black men competitors as well, with guys like Swerve Strickland, Kofi Kingston, Big E, who's still going through neck injuries. Xavier Woods, hell, in my neck of the woods, Brian Keith would basically be the main one, but we just all have to stick together and continue to show support for them. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree there. I again, it's just more so of we're not really allowed to like make mistakes or again, not be on an A game. I feel like if we are, or it's all hell breaks loose.
Uh,
And that's and even and this is not even shade for either. The very different response uh that Maxine Dupree got, which I do think slightly unnecessary. I don't think they should have. I don't think the guy should have been that extra about it. Like we've seen
yeah,
people not be super great at things. You go to indie shows, you see it. You go to, we all seen it. And so I get that, but it's also like it's a house show. It's on a pay per view. It's not like it's. I get that. Like I can understand why she felt sad. I totally understand it. Nobody wants to be booed. Nobody feels good about that. But with that being said, the response to her and then to the amount of time it took for people to start saying anything about Bianca when people were outright disrespectful. In all forms, may I add. It was like all over how many platforms people were not that nice to her, and it took so long for me. It just took a really long time for her co-workers to be like, yeah, you're great. Like, of course she is. I think she's amazing. But it shouldn't have taken like that amount of time. I mean, me as a person, and this is just probably because I'm how I am. If I feel like a friend of mine, I'm always quick actually to be like, oh, I got this. Like, I got you. Like vibes where I'm quick to have something to say and can handle it quite well and say what I need to say and hurt feelings without like batting an eye, and it won't bother me if I'm defending a friend. And so for me, I was like, you guys took kind of long because I would have taken just one comment and I would have been like, oh, I got this. Like, okay, so I don't know. I do think it took a little bit of long time. I do, but again, it's just the amount of grace sometimes other people are allowed. It's just not the same when you think of like black people or black women in general.
hmm and I mean, to be honest, when it comes down to that Maxine Dupree situation, I mean, it just sucked what she had to go through just to basically hear, "Oh, you suck, never come back," or something like that. It's just pathetic because it just shows that some of these fans really aren't truthfully fans just for saying that type of shit, just to demean somebody for one bad performance in the ring. I mean, it's just shameful to me for even somebody to even say that because it just basically shows that there are so many ignorant ass fans just basically trying to disparage people's work. It's like basically saying they don't exist.
Yeah.
But still, dumb. That basically leads me to my next question. With pro wrestling changing ever so rapidly, is it too early to ask about what things will look like basically next year or a few years down the line?
Yeah, I mean, if you said a year ago we thought Mr. Man wouldn't be in WWE, we would have probably laughed at that, honestly.
Mm,
I don't think any of us thought that this would he would be gone, you know. And like while he was away because of other stuff, we didn't think he would be completely gone. I don't think, Stephanie retiring. If you said this 5 years ago, I would have been like, Stephanie, man, she ain't going to like. I just wouldn't have seen that, And so even with again with Bianca and Sasha main event in WrestleMania, don't think I would have said in 5 years ago I would have saw this happening. And so with that being said, that those things happen within like a year or two ago where you're like, oh man, like damn, this is different. And so I can't even tell you honestly how it would be in a year. I hope it changes for the better. I do hope that whatever changes may come, it's for the betterment of the people working in wrestling, in particular the women working in wrestling, or the younger people, because there's quite a few younger people, starting up wrestling, kind of getting it kind of early. Who where I'm like, damn, you how old? And you're was already wrestling, and you already got these many accolades. I think I look at Billy Starks, for instance, who I was very fortunate to interview her some time ago, and like from that interview to now, and I'm like, holy crap, like look at you, like look at this, like this is amazing, like the stuff that you've been able to do. And so I feel like I would hope that whatever changes made, it'll be for the betterment of wrestling for everybody involved. And I do hope again it leads to more women getting more time. Again, not even with indie shows with women getting that one match on the card.
mm,
And it's like you get the one women's match. Okay, we got the women quota. We're good. And I'm like, no, maybe have some more. Um, maybe make it. I would hope it get more safer. I still, unfortunately, everything is not good on that end all the time, and I hear the stories all the time of how sometimes something wasn't safe for this person in a locker room, and you want that. But also, hopefully, more people get more time in bigger promotions. More people get signed to bigger promotions. More people will get to kind of have their gimmicks, but also be authentic to themselves.
mm,
Uh, and so that's what I'm hoping for a year. From now, I don't. Again, unfortunately, as much as we move forward, we also are still very stuck, and sometimes take several steps back at the same time. But hopefully, those things can come in like a year or two, maybe five, where it's not like where it gets to a point where we're not surprised that a woman had a title for this long. We're not surprised that a black woman's main eventing. That those will be just regular occurrences that we're not shocked that it happened.
exactly, exactly. Think of it, with WrestleMania weekend down the pipeline, despite all the issues going on out of the ring with the Big Fat and Stanford, aka the WWE. I mean, are we gonna probably be focused more towards the non WWE events of the weekend? I mean, come to think of it, just earlier today it's been announced that Shayna Baszler is going to be a part of Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, as a little favor probably to the man with the three H's.
I think it's cool. I was very surprised to see it, but I think it's cool. That's more in her lane anyway, with where her background's in. And supposedly there's more. And so I do think that this is a good thing that they're more willing now to work with other promotions, to working with other companies. Jordan Grace popping up at the Royal Rumble, I was surprised. I didn't expect that, and feel like if they kind of keep that goodwill up and trying to like, well, obviously you want to make your money and obviously you want to be on top, but also kind of keep it in a way that doors are open enough and it's not this weird like, ooh, WWE bad. Everything else, I feel like every wrestling company definitely has pros and cons. They all do. There are all things that they all could be better at. There are things that some excel at. But I think it's cool. I definitely do think it's cool. I'm hoping even with like the pay per views being in other countries that like to the point where like, oh, you're really making sure these countries, aside of the Saudi pay per views, you're really making sure that these other countries are also kind of getting the experience that we get here. And I think that's cool. And I think that's actually very smart on their behalf. It's like you guys do have the fan base. You guys are considered like worldwide kind of company. Definitely use it. Use it to your use it. And I think they're finally getting that. And so Uh, her being there, I think, is cool. And whoever else they're announcing, because I did hear it's supposed to be more. Whoever else is, I think that's a really good step in the right direction to kind of having some goodwill between companies. And like, it shouldn't always be like social media war. Though to be fair, I think most of the social media war came from a certain somebody in a certain company. Not to rant on that. So, I feel like that person was a lot more willing to complain on social media as a CEO, which is insane to me. But hopefully, it just means there's better goodwill between the companies, and in the long run, wrestling fans as a whole should be able to enjoy all of it, and in a way, it's a win for us as fans.
Yeah, of course. And considering the fact that you're running long, I just want to ask, first of all, how can people get in contact with your projects or, what you're working on?
I say best way follow me social media and Cat We Trust. If you're on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, I'm trying to get better at posting my TikToks. It's mostly just my clips or interviews though. But
I mean, you better post that TikTok stuff now before the country bans it.
yeah. So like, just follow me in Cat We Trust. Like, there is easy three on those sites on Instagram, Twitter, Threads, and TikTok. Uh, my YouTube channel has all of my stuff, with is like wrestling interviews, but also I'm a bit of a nerd, and so I will definitely talk about anime because I like anime, and I love horror movies and all that stuff, and so you'll kind of find a range of different things there if you are on that. So just follow me there, and my writing I usually will post on social media, and getting back into my writing book stuff that I kind of stopped doing during quarantine, and so I'll probably post some stuff about that kind of stuff as well, just to have
Mhm.
it all. But just follow me on those platforms. You can see what's happening.
I see. I see. I mean, come to think of it, when it comes down to the fact that you're focused on so many different things, and this is probably going to be one of the last questions I ask you, but when you're focused on so many things, I mean, do you ever feel like there has to be a backup plan at this point? Or do you feel like, hey, my goal is to make people happy, make people excited by my presence, and if not, screw them?
No, there's times, like I said, it's been very hectic, which is what I was like telling. And sometimes I have to stop doing something. I have to like reschedule something. It's a lot, and I say in particular that the last year has been really, really, really hectic because I felt like I've been doing a lot more than I was doing the year before. And then I'm also a mom, and so it's like, you're a mom, and that never ends. That job is actually always, there's no clock out for that, and I have good things happening with the kiddies on that end, and so between that and trying to like do more stuff on my end and get back into my writing the way I was before, it's a lot sometimes. It definitely is, and I gotta take a moment sometimes to be like, okay, I need a day, guys. And there's times where I won't even like if it's a weekend, I won't even watch wrestling, and it's just because I gotta recharge. You kind of watching it all the time, and then you're working in it, and it's like that's all you see, and it can definitely, I kind of understand that it can be like a bit taxing. So sometimes if I just need to step away for a day or two, I'll do that, and it's like just kind of recharge, get myself back in there, and then get back at it. But I don't know if because I feel like I'm a lot harder on myself than other people are, and so I don't know if I see it as like, oh, be happy with my presence necessarily, but more
Think
so that I try my best. And hopefully the way I speak or the way I write or my because I'm a bit sarcastic if I'm doing like shows, my after shows I do it at NXT or whatever. Like if that is your jam, great. Happy to have you. Just don't be rude and don't be an asshole, and you're a very regular Katrina, and it won't be a smart ass one if your people. Because I just don't do well with like rudeness or whatever. That's kind of a trigger for me. Where I'm quick like excuse me kind of vibes. But otherwise just just hoping I can do my jobs that I do and do it well and that people enjoy when I am there what I'm
I mean, come to think of it, you probably, I mean, you are obviously no different than Lyric Swinton, Marie Shadows, Diva Incarnate, Denise Salcedo. Y'all all go through the same shit, but y'all know how to basically, deal with it, back it up, and, call people out to the carpet, so to speak. And I mean, come to think of it, when it comes down to Lyric Swinton, I mean, I know that you probably enjoyed a lot of her work, especially the thread that she just posted, right?
Yeah, no, Lyric is great. I was very fortunate to briefly work with her out of the platform we were both on, and we all kind of left a bit simultaneously. And I like that her, joining that was the way I was introduced to her, as far as her being a part of that. And she worked with one of my close friends and co-hosts, and so kind of like the fact that she likes Japanese wrestling, and so do I. And so I was like, yay, somebody else likes Japanese wrestling, because so do I. And watch like New Japan and Stardom and know those things without like having to sound crazy and talk to other people who don't necessarily watch it. And so that was cool. But I think in the last, like, I want to say 6 months, she's been on it, and I'm just so happy to know her, but proud of everything that she's doing. And I think she's really kind of shaking the table. I think she's like rattling feathers, and I'm like ruffling feathers,
Hmm.
rattling the cages. I think she's doing all that, and I like keep fucking doing it. Keep the language, but keep
This,
doing it. Keep doing all those things that people have a lot to say, and I've seen it. A lot to say. They don't like what she's saying, and I'm like, I'm not even an AEW fan. I know she's a diehard AEW fan. I am not. And but even with that, with her, and because I know my friend Kiki covers AEW as well, and she's on it, they're also respectful enough to know, like, listen, you like them, and I don't particularly do, but um, we can still, maybe not watch exactly the same wrestling programs, whatever, but we're still respectful of what we all do in this space, and that there's room for us in this space. I think, but I think what she says, and sometimes she says things a lot nicer than I would say it. And I feel like I'm a good enough writer that I can probably say it, but it would be a lot meaner just because my tolerance level is usually very lower than most people. And so she always says it every while. I'm like, you said everything that I could have said in a more meaner way than you said it, but you said it, and I think that's important. I hope everything she's doing. I hope she keeps doing it. Keep it up. I really see great things from her, and I like in that she's getting to do more and more on her own. I feel like all of us who left that platform, though, in general, I'm glad to see all of us kind of thriving after that, because we was all stressed when it happened, and we was like, I don't know, this is not great, but it actually seems to have worked out for all of us for the better. So
I see, I see. But other than that, Kat, I mean, it's been fun. I mean, aside from obviously the chat, I know that you're gonna probably enjoy yourself for WrestleMania weekend, because I know that it's gonna be more or less of an experience, and no, more or less of an extreme alternative, and way more of an experience that you can handle.
I mean, originally I wanted to go to WrestleMania because it's in Philly and that's pretty easy for me to get to, but I'm also realizing that it's a lot. And every time I see somebody else, I'm like, how many events is it that week? Like, there's so many events that I got the spreadsheet of it, and I was just like, this is insane. Like, how do they expect people to be at all of this? This is insane. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing that. I might just take it as a fan and just kind of soak it up as a fan, being that it's like number 40. We're getting the Rock wrestling again, which is cool to me at least. And there's other things that I feel like that's going to be pretty awesome, even with the indie scene, with everything that's happening with the conventions, with the shows kind
Mm,
of going on. And so I think it's cool. I'm looking forward to see what surprises we get, but also what like moments. I feel like there's definitely going to be a lot of that, in general for both indie, but and WWE as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
mm. I mean, I'm looking forward to it too. I mean, to it as well. But still, though, Kat, it's been really fun to talk to you, because I only ever heard you before, obviously with CAW and everything, but still, though, it was real fun to chat with you, and hopefully we can reconvene more in the future.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
No problem, Kat.